This video is going to give you the option of the alternative method, or sometimes called the British method of factoring. And really, this factoring method is going to take this trinomial and turn it into a four-term thing that we can then use our grouping and our greatest common factoring that we learned about in the last video. So the way this works is if you take the coefficients of the first and the last terms and multiply them together. So 1 times 8 is 8. Then you list all the factors of that number. The two numbers that are going to go in here are the combination of these factors that I can add or subtract to make -9. So we need to go through every possible sign combination. So -1 plus -8 is -9. +1 plus +8 is +9. -1 plus 8 is 7. 1 plus -8 is -7. So there are my four choices. Then I do the same thing with 2 and 4. So 2 plus 4 is 6. -2 plus -4 is -6. -2 plus 4 is 2. And 2 plus -4 is -2. So of all of those combinations, the one that meets my needs is this one, because remember I'm trying to make -9. So what I'm going to do is x squared minus 8xy minus 1xy plus 8y squared. So this idea of these two terms, I still have minus 9xy right there, but I've just split it into two terms, and I took part of the variables from each one and divided them up evenly. So what I can do now is I can group, and when I have a negative sign, I always want to change it to plus a positive. Greatest common factor is x times x minus 8y plus greatest common factor here. Notice I want a positive x and I have a negative, so I'm going to take out a negative y, and that'll give me x minus 8y. That makes everything match. Greatest common factor here and here. X minus 8y times x minus y. And you have successfully factored that trinomial without going through trial and error. So let's look at another example. So a squared minus 7ab plus 10b squared. So 1 times 10 is 10. What are the factors of 10? 1 and 10, 2 and 5. So if I think about adding all of the possible combinations of positive and negative, what I get here is plus or minus 11 or plus or minus 9. If I think about adding and subtracting positive and negative, I get plus or minus 7 and plus or minus 3. Well, what I'm after is 7. So the way I get -7 is to take -2 plus -5. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to rewrite this as a squared minus 2ab, keep those variables, minus 5ab, those variables come from right there, plus 10b squared. So again, I still have -7ab, I've just regrouped it right there, and I've separated it out. So now my grouping is one of the squared terms. Again, I have that minus, so I'm going to get that negative on the 5. Greatest common factor here is a. That leaves me a minus 2b plus greatest common factor. I could take out just a b, but notice I want the a to be positive, so I'm going to take out a -5b and that's going to leave me a minus 2b squared, or a minus 2b, because I took out a b. This and this are identical. A minus 2b times a minus 5b, and you're factored. Now, where this method is really slick is when you have a leading coefficient, this number, that's not 1. So we're going to multiply those two numbers together, which means I have 84. 7 times 12 is 84. If I list all the factors of 84, and you notice how I do this in a systematic manner so that I don't forget any factors, because guaranteed the one you forget is going to be the one that you need. 6 goes in there, 1, 14, 7 goes in, 12. And there are your factors. So now I have to see which of those combinations, when I add them together or subtract them, gives me 20k. Well, when you look down and you start thinking about it, 6 plus 14 gives me 20. So when I rewrite this, first term stays the same, plus 6k plus 14k. There's my 20k, just split apart. I haven't changed my value, plus 12. Group first two together, group last two together. Greatest common factor here is k, 7k plus 6. Greatest common factor here is 2, 7k plus 6. This one and this one are the same, greatest common factor. And you have factored that trinomial. Now the next one has a greatest common factor, and you should always look for that first. 3 times a squared minus 8ab minus 20b squared. And that does not change how this British method works, that 3 will still just hang out on the outside. So now I'm thinking about 1 times 20, just 20, all the factors of 20, 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. How could I add or subtract those to make negative 8? Well, if I subtract 2 and 10, with my 10 being negative, I get negative 8. So I'm going to have a squared minus 10ab plus 2ab. Again, those two together make 8, so I haven't changed my number, minus 20b squared. Then within that parenthesis, you group and factor. So I have 3. Greatest common factor is a times a minus 10b plus greatest common factor 2b times a minus 10b. Greatest common factor. So I have 3 times a minus 10b times a plus 2b. And if you FOIL and distribute that all the way out, you will get back to where you started. Let's do a couple more examples, especially ones that have leading coefficients that are not 1. So 4 times 5 is 20. So I want to think about my factors of 20 that are going to multiply, two numbers that will multiply together to make 20. Let's have my list of factors. Now I think about how can I add or subtract to make 12. Well, if I have negative 2 plus negative 10, I get negative 12. So that's what I'm going to use. So that is going to be split into 4x squared minus 2xy minus 10xy plus 5y squared. Put your grouping parentheses in. When I have that negative, I always change it to plus a negative. Greatest common factor in the first is 2x, and that leaves me 2x minus y, plus, I want a positive, so pull a negative factor out, negative 2y, or 5y, excuse me, 5y will give you 2x minus y. You know you did it right when those pieces match. Greatest common factor of 2x minus y times 2x minus 5y, and there is your answer. Next example, 5 and 6 multiplied together is 30. 1 times 30, 2 times 15, 3 times 10, 5 times 6. How can I add or subtract all the combinations of signs to get 29? Well, if I subtract 30 plus a negative 1, essentially, I'll get 29. So that's what I'm going to do. 5x squared plus 30xy minus 1xy minus 6y squared. Change that to plus a negative. Greatest common factor, 5x leaves me x plus 6y, plus greatest common factor, negative y, leaves me x plus 6y. Take out your greatest common factor here and here, x plus 6y, 5x plus negative y. Now whether you write 5x minus y or 5x plus negative y, it's the same difference. And one last example here. 8 and 7 multiplied together give you 56. So when I look at the factors of 56, and make sure you get them all, it's easy to forget 4 and 14. How, when I add or subtract in all possible combinations, can I get 18? I get it right here. So I have 8u squared plus 4uv plus 14uv plus 7v squared. It doesn't matter what order those two are in. Group them. Greatest common factor, 4u, leaves me 2u plus v. Greatest common factor, 7v, leaves me 2u plus v. Greatest common factor, 2u plus v times 4u plus 7v. And that is the alternative method to factoring. Good luck with your homework.